Hey guys, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of design thinking and how you can begin to apply that to your projects because that's really what a huge part of this course is introducing this topic of design thinking and what it means. So the premise of this thing called design thinking, of thinking like a designer, is about being focused on design principles, which is basically their fancy word for user needs. So don't converge onto an idea and then go for that. You want to diverge and create a lot of choices based off of this one need that you have. So essentially, you could take the idea of creating a thing that goes and just works for the user, which is very unlikely if you come from a lot of different perspectives, or go the other way and start from the user and then create an object or a company or an idea or a system that diverges in order to kind of start from that one point of information that you have. So it's basically all about building that which is wanted and not that which you want to build. And it's an important distinction to make between the two stylistically and strategically. And really, what it's all about, and what a big part of what your jobs is going to be about, is talking to the user. So this whole mythical Steve Jobsian thing of users don't know what they want, that is not what we are going to be doing because that is a little difficult and unlikely. What we are going to be doing is focusing on talking to the user, on learning about their needs, on learning about how we can help solve their needs. And this is something that's going to come a little bit later, but the premise is not asking a user, what do you want? Similar to the Ford's faster horse concept, that's the kind of answer you'll get. So you do not ask, what do you want? You ask, what is your issue? What do you not have? How do you do this certain process right now? So if the environmental group is trying to figure out how to get clean water to people faster in, stretched apart environments in Africa, you do not ask, what do you want? You ask, how do you get water now? You ask, who supplies it? How do you identify its cleanliness? How much time do you have in a day? What time is the best time to go? And then you take all these ideas and concepts, starting off with this one user need, and you diverge into ideas, one of which can become your solution. And this whole design thinking is really focused on three big things that kind of come together: desirability, feasibility, and viability. And desirability is the first one. It's, does the user want it? You can build as many widgets of anything as you want, but as the user does not want it, then it's a pretty useless company or object or tool that you built. Feasibility is important because we're trying to get as creative as possible. We're trying to get imaginative, but it needs to be feasible. It needs to be something that technologically or systematically needs to be able to work. And the last one is viability. So is it economically viable? In the scope of this class, when you're working with the 5 M's that Professor Zoller is going to assign you to read and watch videos on, you'll learn about market and you'll learn about the model, and that's all going to be super important to dictating what your solution is. And it needs to be economically viable for anything to work. So talking to the customer is going to be something very important, and it's difficult. And so something that you guys are going to work on, eventually I'll get to in the next video, is understanding who the stakeholders are in what you're doing, who is going to be impacted by your solution, and who do you need to bring in to make your solution a reality. And that's all hard, and that's all something we're kind of going to learn to do. But I'll give you a personal example from what I did. So Morph, the delivery company I started in this class a couple of years ago, we started on the premise that something can happen, something can change in delivery, not just food delivery, but the scope of delivery entirely. And we talked to every stakeholder we can imagine, to restaurants, to delivery drivers, to delivery services, to the customers who order things, to shipping companies, to we talked to an oil company to understand how gasoline prices affect things like that. All of those people, as wide of a net as you can stretch of stakeholders, will actually help you understand problems and find relationships within these problems. The last important part of design thinking is iteration and prototyping. Iteration is essential. Iteration basically means that what idea you start with is probably 20 steps away from the idea you actually end up implementing. And then that is really just another iteration on a long trajectory to get to where tomorrow is. You could take Netflix. which started off mailing CDs and then started off doing mail order things and then moved on to some sort of very, very early live streaming that it had no success with, and now it gets most of its profits from original content. So you ask, where does the iteration end? And really the answer is nowhere. And I think that the most important principle of design thinking, and something I really, really encourage you all to have a lot of fun with and practice with when you're working on your assignments, is just going crazy, throwing around lots of ideas, not saying no, responding to any idea that comes up in your discussion with a yes and. Yes and means that you take what was said before you and you build upon it and you move it forward. Because a no stops that discussion and never lets it grow into what it might become. A no is kind of the end of it. The best example I can think of that I've been involved in is when I was working for a consulting firm. We were doing a project for Polly Pocket, one of the big American dolls for children. And the way the project was working is that we worked with the Polly Pocket team and we asked them the question, basically, what is the worst thing that Polly Pocket can do, right? And we basically tried to fire neurons in their brains in ways they never went. So let's think of ideas that were never talked about. So what is the worst thing that Polly Pocket can do? People said Polly Pocket can be a drug addict, or Polly Pocket can, I don't know, she can go clubbing at night, or she can drink too much, or Polly Pocket can have some loose, flimsy friends. And all these are crazy ideas, but we said yes, and she does this, and she does this, and she gets home too late, and she meets all these people, and then that led to this incredible idea of what does Polly Pocket do at night, and the eventual launch of a $100 million business of basically Polly Pocket on the red carpet, Polly Pocket at the Oscars, and all of that. So, I encourage you guys to get creative. I will be attaching an awesome TED Talk about design thinking that I want you all to watch and read up on it. What it really is a mindset shift in starting with the user and branching out creatively, systematically, and with innovation and ingenuity and a huge willingness to get things wrong and to iterate. Alright, next video coming soon.